This is Amazing Americans with Kate Delaney.
Kate Delaney back with Jim Agals, our special guest. So what was it like going back to get your bachelor's?
At first, it was a little intimidating. You know, the culture on college campuses 5 years ago, and I'm sure to a degree this year, is a little different than it is in the business world. So you have to adjust to that. And I'm listening to people talking that are in their early 20s to 30s. And here I am, you know, in my mid 70s. So our perspective on life was different. But it was challenging, but interesting, but it's fun. You know, it was challenging myself. And a lot of this stuff is peer review. So I had to review other the students' work. And that was an important part of it, how to do that without hurting feelings, you know, and do it and yet get a positive response. So yeah, it was great. It was a lot of fun.
How long did it take you to get that degree?
3 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
But you got a bachelor's.
I got a bachelor's, yep. Bachelor's in Interdisciplinary Studies with an emphasis on business.
Wow.
My last class, I got an A in creative writing, and it was the genesis of my first novella called Growing Up on the Appalachian Trail, a little story about a bear that doesn't want to leave home. It's a fantasy, brown bear, and he is tasked with carrying this artifact up the Appalachian Trail, which starts in Springer, Georgia, and ends in Katahdin, Mount Katahdin, Baxter State Park in Maine. And it's about his adventures going up.
And then from there, of course, it boomerangs into the Paperboy Chronicles. Tell us about that, because you have a main character, Eddie, and very much there has to be shades of you in it. You know, we're thinking of when it was 1960, all of that, and some of the things that you already told us. So
it's absolutely autobiographical. You know,
yeah.
There were several reasons I wanted to write this book. Selfish reason is because it is in a large degree autobiographical, and I said to myself, if this book actually gets printed, I have kind of like, I'm immortal. My story is immortal. So that was a fun way to think of things. And then I said, you know, I can tell my grandkids and their grandkids how it was to grow up in the 60s and how we looked at life then, and the things that are so different because communication was so different in 1960 than what it is in today. You know, we didn't have faxes, we didn't have cell phones, we didn't have the internet. I mean, it was just so different. And I think we grew up a lot faster. Children today, at least in affluent or upper middle class to upper middle class families, the children grow up slower because they're sheltered. And sometimes I wonder if that sheltering is not a double-edged sword, where are you doing more damage than you are helping your child, you know? Because at some point, children have to face the real world. And your mom and dad may not be as cruel as your boss. So...
Boy, that's true, isn't it? Tell us a little bit more about the book. Eddie is a 13-year-old boy.
Eddie's a 13-year-old boy. His family is my family. He comes from a fractured family, and he's the station master of this office in Queens. They, like every other 13-year-old boy, sports is a very big thing in his life, and he's just realizing that there is a difference between boys and girls. So there's the coming of age type of thing, you know. And I wanted to write this because I find today, and I see it in my grandchildren, they're at a loss on how to negotiate the differences in the sexes. So I said, well, I wonder if I put how we did it in 1960, if it'll be a template for them to understand, oh, he wasn't very sure of himself either. He didn't know what to do, or she didn't know what to do, or this is how it worked back then. So that's one element in it. And back then, and I'm sure in different parts of the country today, there was racial tension. You know, there was the blending. White neighborhoods were becoming white and black neighborhoods. The black community were becoming legitimized with jobs that were good jobs and they had economic power and they wanted what we had, and they had every right to have it. But the schools were a melting pot, you know. So, and of course, when you're 13, the hormones are moving, and boys want to have a pecking order. It's just a natural thing. So you combine that pecking order, where do I stand in relation to my peers, with where do I stand in relation to this ethnicity that I have. It creates a pretty interesting dynamic. And that's part of it too.
Yeah, and so really the book too, I was thinking this the other day, it's a great gift actually because of the things that you learn, but from what kids don't know. It's like they don't know the history of that. You're right. What is a fax? What is that? They honestly don't know a lot of the history.
And very few books are written for tweens. I don't know if you know that terminology, but kids, let's say from 10 to 13. If you look, there's middle grade books, but they're usually they stop around 10 years old. So there's a gap of communication. And I feel it's the most important age because that's when the kid goes from the chrysalis of childhood to becoming an adult, you know, especially girls, you know, they grow up quickly. A girl in my book here, who was a girl I dated when I was 13, and my first girlfriend, I called her a rocket ship. In other words, she was 13 when we started dating, and 6 months later, she was 19.
Yeah, the maturity level is different.
Yeah, and then, you know, and soon after we started becoming an item, she had little use for me, you know. I was still riding a bike, and she was dating guys with a car.
Wow. Yeah, different world. And then you went down this path and you found that door that opened for you when you got your bachelor's degree. You go back at, what was it, did you tell me, 75, and you get the degree and you get creative writing as that course, that last course, and it opens this world, like I said to you. Does it make you want to write more?
Oh, yeah. I've taken several classes with Gotham Writers. I was actually going for an M.Lit class at University of Glasgow, but very disappointed. I got in, and it was a hard school to get into, but very disappointed with the curriculum after a year, and I dropped out. And I'm continuing to look. Maybe I will get my MFA. I'm thinking about University of British Columbia. They have a very good online program. So, nice. But there's many fiction writing books that I've read because I was convinced that it is something that can be done without innate ability because they call it the craft of writing.
As we continue our conversation with Jim Agals, the different road taken to Vietnam, plus more on the writing process.
Stay inspired. Stay tuned to Amazing Americans.